comment, bienvenue, welcome once again to the last property show of the week. This is Cladding Matters with myself, of course, Hamish McClay of Search Convey, and Steve Day of Building Safety Scheme.org. We have interesting big news. Hamish, if you take yourself off mute, I think if you would start us off, if you please, sir.
Candor. I wonder how the Americans spell candor. They take the U out of it. But candor is the word of the moment. And I would like to bring a few surprises out to those of you listening. Apologies for our timing today if you're listening live, but I tell you what, it's well worth hanging on because we really do have some great things to. Well, Steve has got some great things to tell me about. But the stunning aspects about this, we have two Labour MPs that we can actually sort of hold up and sort of say, wow, these guys are standing up for something positive. Now, Keir Starmer, on his departure, has mentioned the Hillsborough law. Now, if that is his goodbye if that is something which is constructive, it isn't actually, we're calling it Hillsborough law, it's not exactly, it's a bill still. It's passed through the Houses of Parliament, goes to the House of Lords. We know it's inundated with Lords, so it should be going through. And I would hope that, I don't know there's much that needs to be changed in it, but essentially what we're speaking about is something that not only does Starmer speak about, but believe it or not, a certain new Prime Minister was actually very, very heavily involved with getting this law up and moving. So Andy Burnham...
What you're saying, he's predisposed to support it, yes?
Well, the two things, not only are both of those predisposed to support it, but Andy Burnham was a significant figure in bringing this whole thing about and sort of getting it off the ground. He did a lot of work on it. So well done, Andy Burnham, and well done, Keir Starmer. Now, well, apart from Labour supporters, that doesn't happen very often. But we better pass over to Steve, I think, because he can let us know exactly what this bill is going to release, and the responsibilities that should have always been there. And in the true sense, they should have been there. We've been speaking about big bad builders. We've got a combination here of challenges that are going on. First of all, Barratt's themselves have decided that as a small amount of remediation they can carry out, they'll actually do it. And this Greenwich Council has actually helped them do that by making misleading statements. So we better go on to Steve before I take off. So best we pass over.
Welcome to the show, Steve, as ever. Today, in the words of Sesame Street, brought to you by the letter C and the word candor, a word that I hadn't used or heard since A-level English. First of all, what does candor mean and why is it so important right now?
Well, it just means don't lie if you're in public office, for goodness sake. I thought that would be something they'd do in the introduction to Public Life Guide and put in a little sanction if you lie your head off. Well, obviously, that isn't the case at Greenwich Council. And obviously, we've documented over a year and, a few months since May, sort of over a year and 3 months ago, about basically a whole story tale of Greenwich Council initially denying all the evidence of unlawful construction and then dumbing down on it, putting the letter through every door at Royal Artillery Quays a couple of months later, sticking it on their website, sticking it on their social media. They want everyone to know there's no evidence of anything unlawful at RAC. Then they said they always remain neutral on the position. Then they denied to a journalist that they ever held the no evidence position. And then they said, oh, well, it's a bit ambiguous, their position anyway. No. You said there was no evidence. You lied again, and then you lied about the lies. And so that's pretty much established. But first, let's go to the law.
I always find it amusing when people in public life lie on the record and it's there in black and white. I mean, there's no equivocation. At one point, they said they had no case to answer. Then they said there was nothing to see here. Then they said they were going to stay neutral, and then they.
Well, we'll show a nice slide on that shortly, but let's go to the misleading in public life, because this is this new Hillsborough law coming in, the Public Accountability Act, and it's past the Commons, it's going to the Lords, and it will be debated. So if you could bring up that first screenshot, Gareth, let's have a look. So this is one of the two new offences. Candor is around sort of like being truthful in inquiries and so on, which is good, and it certainly helped with the Hillsborough law, but it's not the one we're going to focus our guns on. The focus of our guns is on this second offence, which is misleading the public. And it basically says it creates a new offence, misleading from it applies where a public authority or public official acts with the intention of misleading the public or is reckless as to that possibility, and they know or ought to know that their act is seriously improper. And then if you look at the bit in bold, this is very interesting. So it says this offence is intended to capture the most serious instances of public officials or authorities misleading the public. So we would argue that it is serious to say a load of unlawful and dangerous defects doesn't exist and their evidence to support any action in the courts doesn't exist. But it goes a bit further and it says, as an example, a police force issuing a public statement that they know gives a false account of events. So that's basically almost, if you just substitute police force with Greenwich Council or local authority, you can see it fits because it's a public statement. Yes, it was on their website. It was also posted through every resident store. It was on their social media. Public, tick. They ought to know it gives a full sense of accounts. Well, we told them, we showed them all the evidence, including from the council itself. It is a false account, and they had between a year and a few months ago until now to correct the record. They haven't done so. And then, well, let's go to the next slide and have a look. This is what they did. So the first lie is on April 25. They said it's the full council's position that based on all available information, there's no evidence of unlawful construction. That's a lie, as there was evidence at the time when they made that statement. Then a couple of months later in June, the council position is published on the website saying the same thing. There's no action under the Building Act 1984, which basically the only action we could take is if there's unlawful construction. So if then they say there's no evidence to use the act, they're saying exactly the same thing. There's no evidence of unlawful construction. Then they say we always remain neutral the same month. And then a year later, shockingly, after we've kept on, there was, it's basically a statement from Tagger Ryan.
It would have been ambiguous.
Well, yes, it's all ambiguous. And she says it wasn't a public statement. Well, it was because it went out on their website. So that's very clear. And then it was ambiguous, which again, it wasn't. So all that is untrue. Okay. And I think that's provable. We've proved it multiple times, and they've lied to journalists ever since. And they will not withdraw the lie. And the reason this is important is because there's 1,000 people living in dangerous buildings. Only some of those defects are coming off. The internals, what we're fighting over at the moment, and the XPS panels on the fire shaft need to come off too. And this council is overriding the building safety regulator. They should have nothing to do with an 80-meter plus building, because we have another body, the building safety regulator, is meant to make these decisions. So why are Greenwich Council getting involved with a building they don't have jurisdiction on?
I didn't know they were building experts, actually. I'm surprised. They've obviously been doing some night school.
Well, let's go to our next slide. So we've established that it's a lie, it was public, it's serious because it's building safety. So could we go to the Nillen one? I think let's go to that one, Gareth. So we asked our local MP, Abena, over the last year. Previously, she said, your issue is the council have said all your evidence doesn't exist and you want that corrected. So she previously summarized everything. I went back multiple times, as you can imagine, and bashed her on social media and so on, because she was just ignoring us, and we had those initial conversations over email a year ago. Anyway, oh, sorry, it's the Nillan one, Gareth. So if you keep going, there's this one. So this is the executive office manager of Abner, the MP. And if you look at the bit in blue, he says she will be in touch, this is the MP, shortly with an update, including a response to your request for a meeting with the council to discuss their lies and to ask them what evidence they have of all our evidence not existing, which is a bit of a tall order when you're lying to have to explain your lies. So clearly that was but Abner's aide has said that she will respond to the meeting. So let's see what she responds. So, and this was yesterday. There's a shocking email from our local MP. So if you go back to Abner, so the next one, that one. See, Greenwich Council. So basically, the week or 2 weeks before, the aide from Abner's office says that she will get back to us on the meeting. The meeting's not mentioned whatsoever. Look at what she says about Greenwich Council and the long-promised response. Greenwich Council have explained that Royal Artillery Quays is a private domain and is not owned or managed by the council. Fine. So why are Greenwich Council getting involved with denying all our evidence exists? Why don't they leave it to the BSR? And she says at the bottom, they advise that the BSR, the building safety regulator, is responsible for support regarding to building defects or remediation matters. So the point is, the council should have not made a determination on our evidence not existing. They should have left it to the BSR. But do you see the word meeting? I don't see any word meeting.
No, I don't. No, you're right. Not a dicky bird.
And this meeting is vital because it's clear that the residents for over a year have held the position consistently that the evidence exists. The council have said it doesn't, and then have basically, lied a bit further and also threatened me with harassment, legal action, and spread false allegations that I'm inciting violence towards female councillors. Around 192 people.
Behaviour, in my opinion. Pretty shoddy behaviour.
So bear in mind that what we read earlier, a police force, this is in the notes of the new Hillsborough law, putting a public statement out they know to be false will get them at risk of an offence of up to 2 years in prison. So it's a sobering matter. So I would say, let's show you my response, because, I was furious yesterday about Abner. So I said, "Dear Abner, thank you for the update, but unfortunately you have missed the key issue. The remediation is only being done partially at Royal Artillery Quays, and Greenwich Council have falsely denied the existence of all evidence of unlawful construction overriding the building safety regulator. We need this false position withdrawn so we can go to court and obtain a full remediation." And I told her, "You have previously summarised our issue with Greenwich Council correctly, and we're going to help set up a meeting, help get the false position withdrawn." So I've said again, this was yesterday, "Please, can you update us on this one point? We need the meeting with Greenwich Council urgently. You are going to help us with this." And then in bold, here's our link to the Hillsborough law. "In the spirit of the upcoming Hillsborough law, it is important public authorities do not publicly lie in official statements on websites, falsely denying the evidence of building safety defects when they know the evidence exists." And I've asked her, "Please, can you confirm the meeting urgently? We've waited over a year for this, and we can finally make some progress here." And then I put in what I showed you on the thing, the misleading the public part. They should be very worried. I would say Abner now is brought into this because she's clearly denying the opportunity to have a meeting, despite her aide in that screenshot there promising an update on the meeting from her. It never happened. It's very clear, as she summarized previously, that we are in dispute that the evidence exists. So by not arranging this meeting, she is partaking in my view, the denials openly, not basically doing something she said she would do, which is arrange the meeting.
At best, she's obfuscating and avoiding.
Yeah. But I think all of this machinery, because she isn't just a member of the public, she is our MP. She's as high as we can go in the parliamentary system locally to get justice. She knows the issues. She's deliberately not allowing the council to be exposed to me He'll just simply ask the question, why do you believe all 17 reports don't exist? I'll slap them down on the table and they'll have no option to say they lied. They have no option because you can't just discount 17 reports, including from the council itself. So, that's where we are. But let's keep going. So we'll end with this. So Stephanie Barwise. So she says, and we've covered this last week, but I think it's good to say it again. Of course, if Greenwich insist on continuing to repeat the misstatement or making fresh misstatements, such as they have now accepted that their original statement was ambiguous, which it was not, it was a placid denial that there was any evidence, then there would be no need for Hillsborough to operate retrospectively, which means get them for something they've done in the past, for Greenwich to be caught by it.
Because they're
we're just asking the question. As soon as this becomes law and gets royal assent and the king signs off, we will go to Greenwich Council, we'll copy in a few people, and we'll say, is it still your position that all our evidence doesn't exist? We will give you the opportunity to withdraw it for 2 weeks' time. And if you don't, we will then consider whether you are guilty under the Hillsborough law of misleading the public, subject to the risk of 2 years in prison. And that will be we will go for the official involved, Jamie Carswell. We will go for Anthony Okereke, the leader of the council, and Rachel Taggart-Ryan, and possibly Abner too, because I think this is serious enough to not just be about covering up building defects. This is about local authorities, with the help of an MP, stopping a meeting where residents can discuss the safety of their buildings and ask for an untrue and dishonest council position held for over a year to be withdrawn. And if you're watching, any of you from Greenwich Council, and if you're watching Abner's staff or any of the local authority execs around the country, or anyone else that's concerned with building safety, or local authorities telling the truth, this is a key test case. And I will end with this. If you believe you can hide behind the judges and have a word in their ear, I think this is the one time you might fail, because this is Andy Burnham's law. And, you don't get more dirty than a council lying about the existence of dangerous building defects affecting 1,000 people in the spirit of Grenfell. So if we go to court and we go for a private prosecution, for you to basically be held to account for basically doing everything the Hillsborough law is meant to prosecute you for, and the judge lets you off, do you really think Andy Burnham is just going to leave it at that?
No.
I believe when we appeal, you will get your comeuppance. So just bear in mind, this can all be resolved by withdrawing the position. We don't want to go and have any criminal offences here, but as I think we demonstrated, there is a risk now that those involved, as that police example had, it's just mapped onto exactly what you've done at Greenwich Council. You're bringing in the MP to cover for you. You're bringing in so much risk of a criminal prosecution. Just for goodness sake, correct the record and let's all move on.
Hamish, it just seems to me that they are playing with fire if they don't rectify this forthwith.
I think that from their particular perspective, the council's perspective, because they've dragged it on so long, it has created for them much more of a complicated life, because they did have the opportunity, because there was a change allegedly of council. Yeah. Although it had the same leader and all the rest of it, they could have made an opportunity, they gave them an opportunity to change things of this particular nature.
Yeah.
Because it was misleading to the public. We know that to be the case. I mean, and many thanks to, and as I said, it's not very often we say this, to Keir Starmer for actually sort of upholding it and sort of saying how important the whole thing is. And many thanks to Andy Burnham for his particular hard work in getting this particular thing off the ground. The challenge they have now is, will there be enough places left in prisons for these people to go to prison? Because if it is,
I hope they like prison gear. I think maybe they should get made to measure for it. Go and get measured up. Hamish, would you care to take us home?
Well, I think we're pretty well home. Great thing. We're really looking forward to it because it does give an opportunity for candor. I mean, like we both sort of mentioned. I mean, last time Gareth remembers when he studied sort of A level. It's one of those words we don't use terribly often because there's not much of it going about at the moment. But it said the truth will out. Sometimes not enough of it. But in this particular case, yes. And there's an awful lot of people that will be found wanting. It won't just be at Greenwich, because there are a number of other councils that, of course, we can bring to bear within this. But this would be a marvellous test case.
I'm hoping this will encourage those in public life to take their position a little bit more seriously and perhaps think about the words they say before they toss them out. Either, for instance, in question time or in interview or in PMQs, any of these places, maybe they'll think a little bit harder about the words they say. Because as I often say to people, words have meaning and are important. And in this modern age, everything you say, especially if you're in public life, is recorded forever. So if you make statements, it's very easy. I mean, Steve, it's not hard for you to list all the times they've lied. It's just there in black and white.
Ridiculous. Oh, you have a poster, as we just shown. I mean, it's just all there. And also, I would extend, and we always do it. For goodness sake, if you're not happy with this podcast, Anthony or Rachel or Jamie Carswell or Debbie Warren, the CEO, please come on. Please come on. I won't even come. Let me put this down. I will give you free reign. You can have Hamish and Gareth give you a fair hearing, and I won't be there. There's my challenge. Come on and handle Hamish and Gareth and give your view, and then we will respond.
Please tell us why Steve is completely in the wrong about this, and why you are completely in the right. Please do. We will not say anything, and we will just take it as it is. Oh, look. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Steve, for your continued good efforts in this area. Frankly, they are lucky to have you there. And Hamish, thank you for your support ongoing. And to all of you watching, please don't forget, you can catch up. This is a bloody good saga. If you want to see how it's rolled on throughout it, you can always go back to the YouTube channel, Spilling the Proper Tea, and there you will find the history of Cladding Matters, away from our lowly beginnings all the way through to being mentioned in Australia and supported by the ex-premier of Victoria, all the way through to its mentions in the Houses, and also its take up by Lords and MPs alike. Please avail yourself of all this free information and understand why Steve continues to fight as he does. Until next week, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and remember, stay hydrated. Have yourself a marvelous weekend. Bye-bye now.